From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We begin in London, where speculation is rife that a visit by Ecuador's President Lenín Moreno could finalize an agreement with the British government to hand over the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Supporters of Assange have been gathering outside the Ecuadorian Embassy in London to defend his right to asylum. The Ecuadorian Embassy gave refuge to Assange back in 2012 after the former president Rafael Correa granted him political asylum. Now the change of direction by Moreno puts his asylum at risk. The Swedish courts dropped the rape charges against him, but Assange still fears the United States will seek his extradition for disclosing classified information.
I was just reading the Huffington Post, my Danish dialect, where mostly people, they don't see him, not most people, but the comments, people who likes the comments, they said that we don't understand why he's a hero, we don't think that he should be supported, it's too long time now, just get rid of him. And it's terrible because what's happened to him in there could happen to you and me, and he just wants to expose the truth.
On Sunday, the Ecuadorian government responded to the rumors, saying there is no plan to discuss Assange's case during President Lenín Moreno's trip to the UK. The statement also said that due to the complexity of Assange's asylum and the involvement of different stakeholders, there is no short or long-term solution to his situation in sight. However, despite Ecuador's assurances, concern was once again raised when a white van was seen removing furniture and belongings from the Ecuadorian Embassy in London. The WikiLeaks founder has spent 6 years confined to a back room in the embassy. A number of human rights organizations, including United Nations bodies, have called his confinement inhuman. And Telesur's Pablo Navarrete brings us the latest from London.
The founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, could be spending his last hours, if not days, in the Ecuadorian Embassy of the UK based in London after an article in The Intercept by Glenn Greenwald, a journalist, has detailed how Lenín Moreno's visit to Britain, in which he arrived on Friday, ostensibly to talk at the global summit, disabled summit, where he'll be talking on Tuesday. The article says that the real reason is for Lenín Moreno to have high-level talks with the British government to effectively hand over Julian Assange to the British authorities and revoke his status of asylum that was granted under the previous president, Rafael Correa. Now, Lenín Moreno has shown much less sympathy to Julian Assange's case than his predecessor Correa did. He has called it a stone in the shoe of Ecuador. Something that was inherited from the Correa presidency. Now Assange, who is now 47, has been in the Ecuadorian embassy since 2012, and the UN has called his detention arbitrary detention by the UK authorities. But it would appear now that his stay at the Ecuadorian embassy is coming to an end.
Pablo Navarrete from the UK. Argentina has seen more demonstrations against the government's deal with the IMF, as economic and finance ministers gather for a meeting of the G20 in Buenos Aires. In a statement released at the end of this meeting, the G20 member states said dialogue is the only way to face financial vulnerabilities. The statement has been seen as a minimum agreement to save a meeting at which ministers failed to reach any agreement on trade. The document is meant to be the basis for the heads of state to work on at the upcoming G20 summit in Buenos Aires on November 30.
It is not a matter of denying the differences that may exist in certain topics where there is always a very strong and sincere dialogue. But then, when it comes to reaching an agreement and having a statement, we will try to emphasize consensus.
During the meeting, the United States maintained its position on new tariffs, which have prompted trade tensions. Mainstream economists say the new policy promoted by the U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration threatens to hit the growth of global economy.
People are trying to make this about the United States and protectionism. That's not the case at all. This is about the United States wanting free and fair trade.
But representatives from the European Union accused the U.S. administration of starting a trade war. French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire said Europe would refuse to negotiate with a gun to its head, while the EU Finance Commissioner Pierre Moscovici urged the U.S. to act as an ally.
And trade wars are not easy, contrary to what the President said. They create no winners, only casualties. We need instead to find sustainable solutions to the underlying root cause of trade tensions, namely the uneven playing field for trade and investment.
Meanwhile, crowds of demonstrators took to the streets in Buenos Aires to protest against the IMF policies and the $50 billion loan that Argentina signed with the International Monetary Fund.
The third meeting of World Economic Leaders was welcomed with protests against the summit.
We reject the presence of the IMF in our country, and we're going to continue to speak out against it until the month of November. We reject imperialism, not just in Argentina, but in all of Latin America. Today in Argentina, our government continues to fail us with hyperinflation and recession. Those who have taken to the street to reject the IMF's policies say the agreement with the fund needs to be broken and no external debt should be paid. That is the way to defend our national economy and the workers of our country.
For these protesters, nothing good can come from this summit.
This will only bring more hunger and misery to the region. We're fed up with the cuts. We want everyone to know that the people of Argentina are going to do all that we can to prevent these measures from taking place. The people of Argentina will prevent the brutal economic adjustment that they want to implement.
The head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, praised the economic policies promoted by President Macri.
Macri has become an administrator of an economic dictatorship, backed by the IMF in Washington. This concerns the citizens of the Patria Grande, as Argentinians, but mostly as social militants. We see how the impact of these agreements will hurt the most vulnerable sectors in society.
The World Economy Leaders will meet during the weekend in Buenos Aires. They will analyze topics such as infrastructure, employment, and the global economic situation.
We'll take a short break now, but join us again after a video from our multimedia team.
Maternal love is the love that's going to change the future of mankind. So we'd like you to...
we like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind, because it's more inclusive.
There we go, exactly. Yes, thank you.
We can all learn from each other.
Welcome back. In Brazil, the far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro presented his candidacy for October's presidential election. Despite his insults against women, the gay community, and his praise for the torturers of the military dictatorship, the candidate for the Social Liberal Party is running in second place in the polls, behind the former president Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, with 20% of voter preferences. Bolsonaro was linked to those responsible for attacks against activists supporting Lula. He also said that if he wins the presidency, he will take Brazil out of the Paris Climate Agreement.
I know the discomfort that I have caused, along with only a few political allies and friends, to what I call the establishment, or the machine, or the system. We know that. I'm the ugly duckling in this story, but I'm certain soon we will be beautiful.
Still in Brazil, Chinese investors are seeking an even closer relationship with Latin America's largest economy. Between 2003 and 2017, China was involved in 250 different projects in Brazil with a value of almost $124 billion. China is Brazil's largest trading partner with nearly $20.9 billion investments in planned and confirmed projects for 2018. That's the highest amount in the last 7 years.
Brazil needs to know what it wants effectively and show this in a clear way to potential investors, potential partners, which we want in our economic development process.
Mexican President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador has released a 7-page letter he sent to the U.S. President Donald Trump detailing how he plans to improve the economy and security. López Obrador suggested that a plan be drafted between the two countries and also Central American governments to take the strides necessary to improve conditions so that people no longer need to migrate to the north. He said that developing that region and combating poverty would be key parts of the efforts to curb migration. And López Obrador will not be attending the Pacific Alliance Summit, which began on Sunday. The Pacific Alliance is being held in various Mexican cities this week with the participation of the presidents of Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. López Obrador said on Friday he wouldn't take part in the summit because he has not yet been formally named president-elect. López Obrador's economic policies are expected to contrast starkly with those of his counterparts in the Pacific Alliance. Peruvian President Martín Vizcarra sworn in Vicente Ceballos as the new Justice Minister. The appointment came just after a series of audio recordings sparked a growing scandal over the sale of sentences and abuse of power. The corruption scandal prompted the resignation of Justice Minister Salvador Eresi and the President of the Supreme Court, Duberly Rodriguez. Ceballos will have to deal with a ministry under suspicion after the uncovering of a corruption network involving judges and prosecutors, a scandal that has increased the people's distrust in their institutions. The Frente Farabundo Martí para la Liberación Nacional, or FMLN, in El Salvador elected Karina Sosa as the running mate for Hugo Martínez for the presidential election of February. Sosa, a current FMLN legislator, was elected with over 21,000 votes. The Special Electoral Commission announced that 53% of the FMLN membership cast their ballot during Sunday's internal election. The FMLN ticket is running on a firm position of water protection, as the party says that water is just one of the many things that the right-wing Arena party seeks to privatize. Several members of the National Electoral Council in Ecuador have been dismissed. The Transitional Council for Citizen Participation ordered their removal, saying that the members had failed to carry out their duties. The members are seen as being sympathetic towards the former president, Rafael Correa. Our correspondent in Quito, Denise Herrera, has the details.
The Ecuadorian Temporary Council for Citizen Participation and Social Control voted unanimously to remove all officials of the National Electoral Council. The CNA members will have 3 days to present an official request to appeal the Council's decision.
In some cases, it is clear that resolutions made by the National Electoral Council were linked to the interest of the previous administration.
After the Council's resolution, the president of the CNN tweeted a statement rejecting the statement, calling it unconstitutional and illegal. The CNN vice president accepted the resolution.
As I have said before, I do not plan to make any sort of appeal, and I give myself over the Council's will.
Recent latest actions taken by the temporary council, including the removal of several authorities close to the former government, has some analysts calling the decision authoritarian.
This institution has served political maneuvering that seeks to dismantle what has been achieved and allow the return of former powers that control the state. It's evident that the Council has served a key role in dismantling a system that blocked these corrupt powers from being in control again.
The temporary council has also decided to remove the head of the superintendency of banks for allegedly not complying with his duties. During his defense hearing, the superintendent submitted evidence to prove that he had fulfilled all his obligations effectively and professionally. Denise Herrera, Telesur Quito, Ecuador.
The recent attacks against Latinos simply for speaking Spanish in the United States have been shared on social media. One Guatemala rock band, Alux Nahual, is fighting back with the song I Speak Spanish y Que, which they hope will raise awareness on racism and xenophobia.
This is the most recent single of Guatemalan band Alux Nahual. The band, lead singer and writer of the song, says it was made as a response against those who attack Latin American people just for speaking Spanish in the United States.
The song's called I Speak Spanish y Que. We mean don't mess with me, don't harass me for speaking Spanish. Many different languages are spoken in the United States. It actually was made by migrants. So I said in the beginning of the song, you're not Apache, you're not Cherokee. Those were the ones who lived here first. The rest are migrants, so don't complain about migrants of any kind.
The band states that it is time for the people to join, to defend against racism and to make clear that no one should be attacked for speaking Spanish. They believe silence will lead to more attacks.
It is important for us to express as people, as groups and as individuals, as organizations who think out loud, because remaining silent makes them feel right. And if we don't speak and don't report this, then we are accepting that and supporting the situation.
Alux Nahual is known for its social music and protests, not only in Guatemala but also in Central America.
The good thing about a song is you can say many important things, less formally. And I think that these lyrics clearly say what is really happening. We speak one language and they speak another one, but we're all human beings and must be equally respected.
The song I Speak Spanish y Que is available on every social network of Alux Nahual's, and they plan on recording it with other artists from different Latin American countries.
Almost 2 weeks after Storm Beryl swept across the Dominican Republic, the capital Santo Domingo is still struggling to clean up hundreds of tons of trash that accumulated on its beaches. Around 400 tons of garbage, mainly plastic, have been so far removed. But according to the mayor of the city, total waste could be more than 1,000 tons. Following heavy rains from tropical storm Beryl, the ocean front of the city was overrun with garbage. Videos showing floating plastic waste has gone viral on social media.
This is the 10th day that we are cleaning up the trash. It's really commendable the work that the Public Works Ministry has done with more than 520 tons of solid waste, which were discharged in previous weeks by the Ozama River to the Caribbean Sea.
Cuban legislators approved a new cabinet at their first regular session over the weekend. The president and 605 National Assembly members presented the vice presidents and members of the Ministerial Council. All except one of the former vice presidents on the Council of Ministers under Raúl Castro will remain in place. Lively debate is also underway about draft constitutional reform before it is submitted to popular consultation prior to a referendum.
To ratify as Vice President of the Council of Ministers, Commander of the Revolution, Ramiro Valdés Menéndez, Ricardo Cabrisa Ruiz, and Ulises Rosales del Toro, Army Corps General. Leopoldo Sintras Frias as Minister of Revolutionary Armed Forces. Vice Admiral Julio César Gandarilla as Minister of Interior. Bruno Rodríguez Parrilla as Minister of Foreign Relations. And so the Council of Ministers will be composed of 34 members, with an average after of 60 years old, 8 are women, making up 23%. 9 are black or mixed, so 26%. And so I take advantage of the moment to recognize in this Parliament the recognition of work and outlook in the fulfillment of all who fulfill their responsibilities and take on new roles. Thanks to all.
We'll take one last short break, but join us again after a video from our multimedia team. Thanks for joining us again. U.S. President Donald Trump told his Iranian counterpart Hassan Rouhani that any threats to the U.S. risk consequences which few throughout history have suffered before. Trump tweeted a message just hours after Rouhani said to the United States that they should come to realize that peace with Iran is the mother of all peace, and waging war with the country is the mother of all wars. Iran has faced pressure from the U.S. with new sanctions on its oil and energy sector after Trump's decision to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal. A candidate from the Pakistan Justice Movement Party has been killed in a suicide attack in the Pakistani city of Dera Ismail Khan on Sunday, just 3 days ahead of the general elections to be held in the country. The victim was a candidate from the party of the prime ministerial frontrunner Imran Khan. The attack followed a series of bombings at political rallies before the election. The most devastating was the suicide attack in Balochistan 2 weeks ago that killed 149 people. A shooting in Toronto killed 2 people and over a dozen have been wounded. Here's more on that and other stories making headlines around the world.
A gunman opened fire in Toronto's Greek town on Sunday, killing 2 people and wounding 13 others. According to Toronto police, 1 adult female was killed and a young girl is in critical condition. The gunman is said to have opened fire at the police before killing himself using a handgun. Mayor John Tory said the attack is evidence of a gun problem in the city. Police data also reveals that gun crime in Toronto doubled between 2014 and 2017. A spokesman for the French government of Emmanuel Macron has said that the president is determined to establish the truth after footage emerged of one of his top security aides beating an unarmed protester at France's May Day rallies. Macron's aide has been charged after authorities opened a judicial investigation.
Il est calme. The president is calm and extremely determined to establish the truth. He was shocked by the images and considers that this type of behavior is unacceptable and that in France no one is above the law. No one can act with impunity.
Militants stormed a government building in Erbil, the seat of the Kurdistan government in northern Iraq, on Monday. Once inside, they fired at Kurdish security officials, injuring 2. They also seized the 3rd floor of the building, taking several hostages. Security forces are surrounding the building and are preparing to enter the 3rd floor. Kurdish officials believe the gunmen are members of the Islamic State.
And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But as you know, there's other stories you can find on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And be sure to follow us also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.